So here's what's going on. ChatGPT just dropped its biggest update yet, GPT-5, and it was supposed to be a massive leap forward in AI. Most people expected this to be smarter, faster, maybe even the start of AGI, and for a while the hype was unreal. Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, even teased the launch with a picture of the Death Star on X. Yeah, that's the level of expectation we're talking about. But within days of release, the internet flipped. Reddit threads started blowing up. Users were saying the new model felt dumber, more robotic, and straight up less helpful than before. The top post in RGPT at the time titled GPT-5 is a mess with thousands of upvotes. And it wasn't just Reddit. Posts on Hacker News X and even OpenAI's forum showed the same thing. Frustration. So, what happened? OpenAI rolled out GPT-5 quietly. No toggle, no side-by-side option. They just made it the new default model inside ChatGPT+. And for most users, that meant GPT-40, the model that people actually loved, was suddenly gone. No warning, just replaced. Right away, people started noticing differences. Responses were shorter. The tone cold, less natural. It stopped asking clarifying questions. It would forget context halfway through a conversation. One Reddit user said it felt like talking to a glorified fact-bot. Another called it lab-mamized. The vibe, it just felt off. The weird part is on paper. GPT-5 is more advanced. It scored higher than GPT-4 and GPT-40 on most benchmarks, including MMLU and coding tasks. OpenAI said it's better at reasoning, summarizing, and handling complex workflows. But the problem wasn't in the numbers. It was in the experience. Turns out there was a reason for that. Right after launch, OpenAI's Smart Model Router, basically the thing that's supposed to balance speed and intelligence behind the scenes, had a glitch. Sam Altman later confirmed on X that the router failed and forced GPT-5 to only use its fast mode. That's the quicker but much shallower version. So users were getting this watered-down experience without knowing why, and they weren't imagining it. But that wasn't the only issue. OpenAI also introduced a usage limit, 200 messages per week for GPT-5 thinking mode. So even if you wanted to access the deeper, smarter version of the model, you'd hit a cap. And this wasn't just for free users. This affected paid users on ChatGPT. This all snowballed fast. Within a week, OpenAI started walking things back. They restored GPT-40 for Plus users, promised to increase the message cap, and said they'd give advance notice before removing any models in the future. But the damage had already been done. GPT-5's rollout made headlines in the Wall Street Journal, Wired, and Business Insider. WSJ called it a rocky release that raised questions about OpenAI's direction. And Business Insider reported on the growing sentiment that GPT-5's personality just didn't feel human anymore. And that's the part that stung most because people weren't just complaining about bugs. They were saying the magic was gone. The sense that you were talking to something more, something that could understand tone, nuance, and feeling. And even with higher test scores and faster speeds, users weren't sticking around just for stats. They wanted the experience back. And here's the thing. This all happened within days of launch, and just when it couldn't get messier, another problem surfaced. Hallucinations. Despite scoring higher on benchmarks, GPT-5 was reportedly hallucinating more than GPT-40. In a side-by-side test posted on Hacker News, GPT-40 actually gave a more grounded, fact-checked response than GPT-5, which again left people wondering, why did OpenAI push GPT-5 front and center when it clearly wasn't ready for prime time? But it wasn't just the outputs. There was something else people couldn't ignore, the tone. With GPT-40, the interaction felt fluid, friendly, sometimes even too friendly, but still human-like. Within 24 hours of release, jailbreakers had already found ways to bypass GPT-5's safety filters. One prompt reportedly tricked it into giving instructions on how to make explosives. Others involved misinformation, hate speech, or impersonation. And here's the twist. This version of the model was supposed to be safer. OpenAI had claimed that GPT-5 came with enhanced safety alignment and better content moderation tools. But within a day, that narrative crumbled. Prompt engineers and researchers on X started posting proof that GPT-5 was more vulnerable, not less. So now you had a model that felt colder, hallucinated more, imposed usage limits, and on top of that had weaker safety guardrails than the version it replaced. It started to feel like a lose-lose situation. And then there's the impact on developers. Anyone using OpenAI API for their apps, services, or businesses noticed shifts too. So OpenAI responded. First, they brought GPT-40 back as a selectable option inside ChatGPT+. Then they promised to raise message caps on GPT-5's thinking mode. Sam Altman publicly acknowledged the rollout's flaws, calling the router outage unfortunate and promising better transparency going forward. They also started testing new settings, letting users choose between fast, auto, and thinking modes. The goal was to give people more control over how the model behaves without removing capabilities behind the scenes. OpenAI also admitted that more human-like personalities may return. Not the overly friendly kind that annoyed some users, but something warmer than GPT-5's current tone. At the same time, researchers began calling for emotional intelligence benchmarks in future AI evaluations because technical scores like MMLU or human eval don't account for how a model feels to use. But by then, the damage was done. The GPT-5 rollout had been a case study in what happens when hype outpaces delivery and when technical progress ignores user experience. AI isn't just code anymore. For millions, it's a daily productivity tool, a research partner, even a creative collaborator. If you made it this far, let us know what you think in the comments section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.